back from my parents' place, and okay, and so we'll see how this session goes. And this is kind of a special session, right? It's the last session of this module.
Yes, and I already informed people that you will teach about Buddha nature.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, okay, then I teach about Buddha nature if that is the case.
Well, no sound. Is the sound okay? Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. So it seems like the video is the image is not flickering like last time, right?
Right.
Okay, cool, wonderful. Right, so then let's start again with a little bit of meditation and motivation and so forth, yeah, like we did the last time as well. Yeah, just to calm down and to prepare the mind for this session. And so first we just sit comfortably. Yeah, we check a little bit the body if we are kind of in an awkward position or if it is comfortable and so forth. And if it's uncomfortable, we change the position, easy as that. So we try to sit very comfortable, either cross-legged or not, on a chair, whatever, but try to be in a sitting position that is comfortable and also not a situation that makes you sleepy, like too relaxed or something. Yeah? Like try to have a position that you are comfortable, but also can stay alert. And when you have found such a position, then you can become aware that you're here in a very special place. You have very special people around you. It's a very, very special group tonight. Probably no other group like this in your city tonight. And we decide that this is the best place we can be for tonight. And so for this hour or 1.5 hours that we're going to be here, we decide to keep the mind here in this place. Yeah, there's no better place, no more beautiful place, no more interesting place anywhere in the city. So we just keep the mind here, and we allow ourselves this 1.5 hours of treating ourselves to be just here. That means if the mind wants to run away to other places, we bring it back here. And again, just stating to ourselves, this is the best place I can possibly be right now. And when the mind wants to run away into the past, to evaluate something that happened today or some time ago, we can do this later. We don't have to do this. We can give ourselves a break from visiting the past all the time. And also, if the mind wants to run away into the future, planning the future and so forth, we can do this later. There's no rush. So we give ourselves the space. We allow ourselves to just be here in that very room. And we decide to keep the mind here in this room, we allow ourselves to just be here in that room with that group of beautiful people. So let's try to do this. Try to establish firmly this attitude. And in this way, we have brought the body into a conducive situation, and we also brought the mind into a conducive situation. So now we're going to focus the mind a little bit more by observing our breath. We just observe the flowing in and flowing out of the breath. You can do this in different places. You can do it at the nostrils, try to feel how the air comes in and out. You can also observe your stomach, how it is arising and going back and so forth. But you just do that. So it's a very neutral object, just the breath. It's nothing exciting. Yeah? It's nothing exhausting or something like that. So just for some minutes, you allow yourself to do something like that, just to observe the breath. And what might happen, or will most probably happen, is that the mind is running away, comes up with all kind of thoughts and so forth. So thoughts are completely impermanent. They have no essence in themselves. They dissolve anyway, unless we are clinging to them. So when thoughts are arising, you just let them go. You imagine that there are leaves on an autumn tree where the wind is just carrying them away. Whatever arises as a thought, you just let go of it and go back to the breath. Keep observing the breath. Focus the mind on the breath. If you like, you can count breathing in, breathing out as 1, breathing in, breathing out as 2. If you like, you don't have to. And in this way, we can spend some time just observing the breath. We do this in order to calm the mind and to concentrate the mind. If the mind gets distracted, just let go and bring it back to the breath and observe the breath. If the mind gets distracted, just bring it back. No drama, no guilt feelings, just bring it back to the breath. And then, having concentrated and calmed the mind, we can now generate a motivation into this space and peace that we have generated in the mind. And we can first think about, why did we come this evening to this group? It was our decision. Nobody forced us. We don't have to be here. We had many other possibilities to spend the evening. So why did we come here? What was our motivation to come here? what was the motivation that we now found in our mind. Maybe we can strengthen it or expand it. So we would like to be here with a concentrated mind, because we would like to know more about the mind and its potential, our mind and its potential, and the mind of everybody here in the room, in your city, in Romania, on the planet, in the universe, their mind and the potential of all these beings. Because we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. And we also want to help other people in becoming happy and to not have to suffer. So in order to do so, we want to understand the mind, which is the very place in which happiness and suffering are taking place. And we want to understand its potential to get rid of suffering and to experience a fulfilling happiness. So because of that, we want to listen, we want to participate, we want to ask questions, we want to stay focused and so forth. We are really engaged into this evening in order to develop our own potential and even to learn things that we might be able to share with other people in the appropriate situation so that they can develop their potential as well. So try to establish a motivation in that area. Then we can come back out of the motivation to the place here. And then we can start our discussion. So this is the third evening that we're going to talk about mind and its potential. And was suggested by Marius now that we would talk about the Buddha potential, which is of course to some extent just another word for that the mind has this very potential. It's kind of giving a name to this potential of the mind, because ultimately the potential of the mind is that it's our mind, means the mind of us beings, that we are limited, that we are going through all kind of emotions like sadness or excitement or desire or anger or being bored or being dull, going through all kind of mental states like understanding something, not understanding something, being confused, being clear, being asleep, being maybe unconscious sometimes, experiencing pain, experiencing joy, all these many things. This very mind of ours has the potential to become the mind of a Buddha, to gain the state of a Buddha. In other words, this is called enlightenment. So that's our very potential. I think we actually touched on this last time a little bit when I said that we all have Buddha potential in the sense of that when we work with our mind, then it can change into something very positive and pure, into the state of a Buddha. So Buddha potential means that we are not Buddhas yet, but we have the potential to be a Buddha. In the same way, like an apple seed is not an apple, or is not an apple tree, but it has the potential to become such an apple tree and then produce more apples and so forth. So in the same way, we say here in the Mahayana that we all have Buddha potential. This is actually indeed a Mahayana topic. Does this make sense to people? Mahayana? Is this a topic, a term that is known to everybody?
No, it's not clear.
It's not clear? Okay. So Mahayana, so in Buddhism we talk about Hinayana and Mahayana, and then the Mahayana itself is divided into Sutrayana and Tantrayana. So this is Sanskrit terms. The Hinayana you could translate as the modest vehicle or the limited vehicle, and the Mahayana is the so-called great vehicle or the vast vehicle. So the division of Mahayana and Sutrayana and Tantrayana is then just talking about different methods that you use in these two types of Mahayana. So it's not so important right now to talk about that. So let's talk about this difference between the modest vehicle and the vast vehicle, the great vehicle, the Mahayana. So the difference why one is called modest and the other one is called vast is because it has a different scope. So in a nutshell, you could say the modest vehicle is a vehicle that tries to liberate yourself from all the problems that you have and to gain for yourself something that you're longing for but you have never experienced, which is a lasting, deep joy and happiness. Yeah, so the happiness that we are experiencing is always short-lived. It's always replaced by something else, by neutral feelings, or by suffering, by pain. The happiness that we have is happening only sometimes, while actually we are longing for something that is deeply fulfilling and is lasting. And also the happiness that we experience is kind of something like, let's say, for example, if you eat some chocolate, that's kind of maybe some sensual experience, some sensual joy or something, but it's very, 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 I would say, low. It's not kind of that you're blissing out on chocolate or something. It's just a very limited form of happiness, and most of our happiness is actually like that. So what we're actually looking for is kind of a deep, intensive form of happiness, and that lasting. We talked about this before, that we are actually looking for something lasting. So that's something we're longing for, but it's not something that we have actually experienced, obviously, because a lasting, you could say an eternal happiness would be something that if we would have gained this in the past, we would still have it, otherwise it wouldn't be eternal. So we have never actually experienced a lasting happiness or an eternal happiness, while actually we're longing for that. So in the modest vehicle, in the Hinayana, you're looking for an attainment of such a lasting and fulfilling happiness, which the term for is nirvana. And so to some extent, I'm not very precise here, but nirvana is talking about a state in which you would experience such a lasting and fulfilling happiness as you're longing for. So that's fully okay. That's a very high goal, very difficult to attain. It's a vast, intensive spiritual challenge, and so that's kind of included in this modest vehicle. The Mahayana goes way beyond that. The Mahayana is describing how there is not just the lasting and fulfilling happiness of nirvana, but then beyond that there is many other forms of lasting and fulfilling forms of happiness, and that actually you can go beyond just fulfilling your own goal and understand that everybody around you is in the same situation like yourself. They also want to experience fulfilling happiness, but they don't have that. So they're actually suffering from exactly the same problems like yourself. And so, moved by strong compassion for the other beings, you're taking on the task to actually bring about that all these other beings are also attaining a state of lasting happiness. And you understand that you're actually not capable of doing this right now because you're not even able to bring about your own lasting happiness. So what you decide on is that, like you from understanding the presentations of Buddhism, you understand that a Buddha, if you would be in the state of a Buddha, then you would be capable of leading all sentient beings to this state of nirvana or even to Buddhahood itself. So what you're aiming for is not kind of just the happiness of nirvana for yourself, a lasting fulfillment, a lasting joy and happiness and bliss, but you're looking for the capacities, the skills of a Buddha in order to be able to lead all sentient beings, not just human beings, all the animals, and whatever types of sentient beings there exist, to lead all of them to complete liberation, to complete Buddhahood. So that's why it is called vast, because to some extent you could say the aim of your spiritual practice is actually limitless sentient beings, or billions and billions of sentient beings. But in the modest vehicle, it is about yourself. Yeah. So does that make sense as a difference between these two vehicles?
Yeah.
So the problem is that actually, so this distinction is actually made obviously by the Mahayana. In the Hinayana countries, in Thailand and in Sri Lanka, in Burma, in Cambodia, I feel like I missed one. In these kind of countries, they're not talking about Hinayana and Mahayana, because for them, Buddhism is just that. It is something that leads you to nirvana, full stop. Yeah? So it's not that that they would say like there's Hinayana and Mahayana, but we only practice the Hinayana. It's not like that. Yeah? So they would say that Hinayana is the only path. There is only that path. They would describe that there is a Buddha. Yeah? Of course, they also believe in the Buddha Shakyamuni. So they said that the Buddha made a special path. So he became Buddha and taught. But they would say that for us, this is not necessary. Now that the Buddha taught how we can get liberated, we can just follow that path, and no one of us has to become a Buddha because the Dharma is already there. So something like that. Yeah? So I'm just saying that in the Hinayana countries, they would not talk about Hinayana and Mahayana, and they would not even I would say call themselves Hinayanists. Yeah? So, for example, Thailand would refer to itself as being a Theravada country. Theravada, which means something like the vehicle of the elders or something like that. So I'm just saying this distinction in the Mahayana and Hinayana comes from the Mahayana. Yeah? So the Mahayana refers to a practice of somebody who is aiming for his own liberation only, as being a limited vehicle. And with regard to somebody who's practicing such that he wants to become a completely enlightened Buddha, in order to help all sentient beings, that would be a vast vehicle. So I don't want to cover up the fact that Hinayana, the word Hina, is actually not just. I'm saying it's a modest vehicle because I do not want to be disrespectful to any Theravada country or Theravada practice or something like this. Actually, it means what's called the small vehicle, but actually it's even stronger than that. It means something like the low vehicle or something like this. Anyway, all of this from the point of Mahayana. I'm just saying there is these two differences. You can talk about a Hinayana practitioner, that is somebody who is aiming for his own liberation only, and there is somebody who is aiming for the liberation of all sentient beings. And so that's a much bigger task, a much vaster mind that has this kind of attitude. Because it would include that he himself would not just look for his own liberation, but for all liberation of all. And in order to attain that, he's not satisfied with his own liberation, but wants to become a completely enlightened Buddha. So what I'm saying is here, in the Hinayana practice or Theravada practices, the Buddha is not so much of a topic like how you become a Buddha. How the mind has the potential for that. I'm not sure if they would say that everybody has Buddha potential. I'm not sure about that. But in the Mahayana, as the Mahayana is aiming from the very beginning at everybody becoming a Buddha, then from the very beginning it would make sense if they would say everybody should become a Buddha. Then they would at the same time say that not everybody has the potential to do so. So in the Mahayana is very clear, all of us can become a Buddha. So that is then actually going very, very far in what this tells us about the potential of the mind. So for this, we would have to understand what a Buddha is. Yes, when we say we have Buddha potential, means we are not Buddhas, but we can become Buddhas. Then we need to understand what a Buddha is in order to appreciate the fact that we have Buddha potential. So a Buddha is a being that is free of any kind of limitation in the mind. It has attained any kind of positive quality that is possible to be attained. Is a being that is limitless in each and every aspect. For example, with regard to its love and compassion, it has limitless love, limitless compassion. There is not a single being that would not be encompassed by the love or compassion of the Buddha. The Buddha, in his knowing capacity, is omniscient. Is aware of each and every phenomenon. They even say is omniscient with regard to the three times, past, present, and future, which presents many problems, which are studied in philosophy. How this works? How does the Buddha know the past? How does the Buddha know the future, and so forth? Many of the things that we are studying here in Nalanda, for example, by the great text about the path, are no longer the case with regard to a Buddha. The Buddha is in an extremely exceptional state of mind. For example, I'm just saying this, I'm not necessarily expecting that people know what I'm talking about, but when we talk about emptiness, that ultimate reality, then we say that in our case, we would be able to see ultimate reality with one mind, but at that time we could not see so-called conventional reality. And when we get out of this meditation on ultimate reality, we could see conventional reality, but no longer the ultimate reality. So the Buddha can see both within one mind. He can see the ultimate reality and the conventional reality at the same time. So this is anyway. The Buddha has kind of many features which are exceptional and which are really kind of setting him apart. This goes so far that in Buddhism they talk a lot about sentient beings. And they say in the end, the Buddha is no longer a sentient being. He is a Buddha. He's gone beyond sentient beings even. So this state is, I mean, when I say that he's kind of all-encompassing love, all-encompassing compassion, that he's omniscient, that there's no limitation to him, that he pervades with his knowledge all the universe and all the universes and stuff like that, then my reaction would be, oh, that sounds like God. Yeah, in other religions, God is omniscient, and God is love, and limitless forgiving, and I know what, all these things. And indeed, this is kind of a level that we're talking about here. Yeah, so of course, if you go to other religions, they will tell you that God has always been God. This is not the case with the Buddha. The Buddha became an omniscient being. They would also say that the God created the world. This is not the case. The Buddha did not create the world. But anyway, he has these kind of capacities that normally are referred to in other religions as being the level of God, like omniscience, all-pervasive love, all-encompassing compassion, and so forth. Also great skill in what is called emanations, taking on forms, emanating to sentient beings, to the beings and so forth, to the ones that they want to help. So emanation, like in Buddhism, they talk a lot about, not a lot, but they present many, how I say, extrasensory capacities, like manifesting things, knowing other people's mind and so forth. Yeah, so all this kind of normally called miraculous powers and so forth. So the Buddha has this to a limitless extent. But the only limitation that comes to the Buddha is from the side of the sentient beings. If the sentient beings are so self-centered, so limited, so lost in their own perceptions and their own judgments and so on, the Buddha cannot penetrate to them. The Buddha does not want anything more than being right with you over there and being right with me here in this room, manifest, interact with us, talk to us and so forth. But as a matter of fact, he's not there. He's not physically present over there in Cluj, and he's not physically present here in my room. I can tell you that much. He is present as a in mind, this is love and compassion is pervading the whole space. So wherever you go, feel loved. The Buddha is right with you all the time. So that's the case, but he cannot manifest, which he actually would like to do. The Buddha especially would like to speak. He would like to be with us and communicate with us. He would like to interact with us. So from his side, he has no limitation with regard to that. It's from our side that we are not having, well, the phrase is, we don't have the karma, we don't have the situation, the good situation, to actually meet the Buddha. But from the side of the Buddha is constantly just waiting for a moment of possibility to manifest into our life. So that's kind of what a Buddha is, and we already saw it's kind of touching on the idea of Godhead in other religions and so forth. And that's what Buddha potential is. Our mind has the potential to become right that. That's quite something to say. So if I would say in any other religion that I think that I can become omniscient and I can become all-pervasive love and so forth, I think it would be blasphemy. Yeah, so here in Buddhism, this is, or Mahayana Buddhism especially, this is the very basis of practice, that we have a highest being, and that this highest being has become the highest being, has not always been the highest being, and this highest being was once in our state of mind, state of affairs, state of rebirth and so forth, and even worse states, and has then developed into that highest state possible, has become the highest being, and therefore, from this very, example that the highest being is setting, we can understand we ourselves, not being different from the Buddha in essence, we can also walk that same path and also gain this highest state, also become a highest being. So that's another thing, of course, as we are coming from monotheistic religions or monotheistic backgrounds, there is not, it's maybe difficult to get the head around that there is in Buddhism not just one highest being. There's myriads of Buddhas. There's myriads of those who have walked the path and have succeeded in getting rid of all obstacles and having attained all the highest qualities and having attained limitlessness in all the good qualities, limitless love, limitless compassion, and so forth, by walking the path. And we ourselves can also become of that type. Yeah? So there is also not this idea that the highest being is only one. Yeah? So there's no divine aspect in being one. It's not that. I guess in other religions it would be something like that. There's only one God also shows that he's so exceptional. But actually, in Buddhism, this is not the case. The exceptional thing about the Buddha is that he is limitless, and limitless love and limitless goodness in all aspects. He doesn't have to be one in order to be exceptional. So all of this is coming back to this topic of Buddha nature. So it's kind of two different ways of approaching the whole thing. On the one hand, we understand that we have Buddha nature because we can purify all the limitations in our mind, and we can attain the highest state of goodness. On the other hand, we also need to work on understanding what a Buddha is, what kind of capacity such a Buddha has, and so forth. And so it goes back and forth. By understanding what a Buddha is more and more, you understand what your potential is. Then by understanding what's going on in your mind and how this can all be purified and how you can be more and more free and open and limitless, then by this you can understand what a Buddha is. Yeah, so by understanding all the limitations that you have now, by understanding all the afflictions that you have in your mind right now and so forth, then you can understand the Buddha is without that. So you understand more about the Buddha. This will be a topic later on. I think this is like the module 6 or something, this is 05, which is the 3 jewels, which in Buddhism you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And in order to do so, you need to understand what these are. So you need to understand more about what the Buddha is. So that's kind of what Buddha potential is about. You could say we all have, we are living in a universe that has a highest level of attainment, the highest level of existence, the highest level of being, and we have the potential to reach this highest level. We have the potential to become one of these highest beings. We have the potential to become omniscient. So that's quite a shock, I have to say. This is like quite a thing to take in, that we could become omniscient. This is just completely counterintuitive, but one has to look at the reasons. One has to look at why does the mind not know everything? And we said the nature of the mind is that it is clear in knowing. And that's all what mind is. It's just that. It's clear in knowing. It's non-material. It is something that has appearances of things and knows these appearances. It knows some of the things directly, other things by concepts and so forth. But anyway, the mind is just this clear and knowing phenomenon. So the question is actually why, if our mind is clear and knowing, why do we not know everything? So the other way around. Why are we not omniscient? Why does the phenomenon that is just clear and knowing not know everything? Why does it have any limitations in its being clear and knowing? Yeah, so that's then actually the description of samsara and of the two types of obscurations that we have in our mind that limit us in our perception, in our ability to be calm, our ability to be loving and compassionate, and our ability to know and so forth. So actually, when I talk about highest being and that this is similar to the concept of God in other religions, then there might creep in this idea of the Buddha being something holy. And that's a possible way to approach the Buddha. But actually the Buddha is simply sane. He's simply spiritually healthy. That's all. The healthy state of the mind is being omniscient. The healthy state, the normal state, if you like, of the mind is being a Buddha. If you like, you could say we are spiritually sick, we are spiritually ailing. And so if we get rid of the sickness, if we get rid of the problems in our mind, all what is there naturally as being, if you like, the nature of the mind, is the state of a Buddha. So that is the potential of the mind. This is then in the end also what Buddha nature is all about. And that we have this Buddha nature, that this is actually that we have this potential to become a Buddha, means that there is the possibility by certain practices, by certain causal conditions, to actually gain the state of a Buddha. So this is due to all that what hinders us, all the hindrances in our mind being impermanent and being not part of our nature. And so we do, like, let's say we're angry at times or we're jealous at times. So we do not have jealousy nature. We do not have anger nature. We don't have that. That's not in our nature. But we have the potential to become a Buddha. That is in our nature. It is part of our nature. And I talked about this last time when I thought about this, that we can become a Buddha, but we haven't become a Buddha yet, so therefore we have Buddha potential. Then in the past, when I thought about this topic years ago, I was thinking, well, then we could also say we have Hitler potential, because we are not Hitler right now. But if things go very, very bad in our mind and we get more and more crooked and strange in our mind, we might end up as Hitler or as somebody like Hitler with this kind of state of mind, and maybe also with this kind of power and so forth. So that's actually not the case. We do not have Hitler potential in that sense, because all these negativities that would lead to us ending up as Hitler can be completely removed. We can become completely free of any possibility to ever end up like Hitler or, I don't know, other people like that, or worse. So this can be actually removed, while as long as we are not a Buddha, the potential to become a Buddha cannot be removed. So that's quite interesting. Yeah? So you might find out that we have all kind of negative sides to ourselves. Maybe we're even overly criticizing ourselves or putting ourselves down and so forth. So all of this can be removed. And even if we would be a very negative person, let's say if we would be a psychopath or completely distorted in our mind and so forth, the Buddha potential would never get destroyed. It will always be there. So for example, Hitler had Buddha potential. And whatever he did, with all the Holocaust and with all the World Wars and so on, whatever negativities he did, like strong, millions of people dead and so forth, like amazing negativity, never took away his Buddha potential. So that can be quite helpful to be aware of this. This could be one of the possibilities to relate to other people. People that you have problems with, or people that you see as very negative, or maybe today, let's say politicians or something like this, or anyway, other people of any type. You can always come back to this fact. This person has Buddha potential, just like me. However negative this person is, these negative sides can be destroyed by this person. This person has Buddha potential, just like me. Yeah. So that's really important to understand that whatever negative sides we have and whatever limitations we have, they are fleeting. They can be changed. They're just there due to certain causes and conditions, and they will change into something else. Especially if we take a cosmic perspective, that we have certain character traits in this life, and in next life we might have very different character traits. Yeah? So these negativities of ours will be very fleeting, will change anyway. It's just that we have to really work with our mind to destroy them completely so that they will never come back. But in any case, whatever happens to us, we will never lose Buddha potential. So just to expand this a little bit more even, also animals have Buddha potential. Even insects have Buddha potential. Yeah, it's the same thing as I just said right now. Whatever animal you have, whatever insect you have, whatever snakes you have, I don't know, what tigers or lions living from killing other beings alive and eating them alive and so forth. So all of these have Buddha potential. This becomes especially clear as also this lion, this snake, this mosquito will die and take another life form. So in the next life, it might be of a much higher state of affairs. It might be in the next life a human being with good nature and intelligent, and maybe meeting Buddhism and doing good practice and so forth, working with his or her mind and so forth. While in the last life was a snake, or was a tiger or something like that. So these features like being an animal, being a human being, being a man, being a woman, being a negative person, being a positive person, being a spiritual person, being not a spiritual person. So all these are fleeting aspects and change. But in all of this, the mind never loses its Buddha potential. So the thing is that it's good to have Buddha potential. That's I would say this is kind of an encouraging thing to say, an encouraging factor, positive outlook on life. But as a matter of fact, we had Buddha potential since beginningless lifetimes. So nothing much happened up to now. So we're still here. We're still trying to make money in order to feed ourselves and to have some holiday and to have a car, and we are still dying, and we will still have problems with our rebirth and so forth. So what's the big deal of having Buddha nature? It didn't help us so much, did it? So indeed, the Buddha nature will stay a Buddha potential or Buddha nature as long as we don't do something with it. Yeah, so it's something that we need to understand, that we have this Buddha nature, just like the Buddha had before he was a Buddha. But then we need to make something out of the situation. We understand that we have this potential, and then we need to ask ourselves, so how can we make it manifest? How can we make out of a Buddha potential a Buddha? So in other words, we need to be interested in what stages are to be done in order to transform ourselves out of this potential state into the actual Buddha. And so in the end, all of this is again coming down to the mind. Yeah, it comes down to changing our samsara mind into the omniscient mind of a Buddha. again, it's in the mind. It's the mind and its potential. When we talk about Buddha potential, we talk about the mind of a Buddha, that we want to gain the mind of a Buddha. And so therefore, we would have to get an interest into practices, how to change the mind. And in order to understand these practices, it would be necessary to understand more about the mind. So we are back to the actual topic, mind and its potential. So again, in Buddhism, mind is completely central. It's all about that. It's not about society, it's not about science, it's not about the body and so forth. It's all about the mind and how the mind functions and so forth. So therefore, Buddha nature is also just another aspect of saying the mind has this kind of nature, this and this kind of phenomena are happening in the mind, and this in this way, these phenomena are showing up in the mind, and this in this way we can change the mind, manipulate the mind, train the mind, and all of this is then called a path, walking a spiritual path, transforming the mind by way of a spiritual path. Talking about a path, I think maybe last weekend or the weekend before, Venerable Tender was in Cluj, wasn't he? Yeah? So that's great because he was talking about the Four Noble Truths, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah? So there you have right this. Yeah? You have the true sufferings, the true origins, the true cessations, and the true paths right there. Yeah? So the two origins, the true cessations to some extent, on a certain level, you could say is talking about Buddhahood or is talking about Nirvana at least. And so the fourth one is right that the paths that you need to apply in order to gain this final states, either of Nirvana or even of complete Buddhahood. And so that's what's going on with this Buddha potential and talking about the mind and its potential. When we say the mind and its potential, then what you're actually saying is this very mind right now can be something very different, and the way to achieve this is by way of paths, by way of practices, by way of training. And again, what this is saying is that whatever we can see in our mind right now can be changed. So that's one of the major messages here. Like to understand that the mind has these potentials also includes that you understand that the mind is impermanent and it can change. So I think often we are in the state where we think like, well, that's just my character, that's just my nature, I'm like that, and other people can deal with me or they cannot deal with me. I'm just like that, nothing I can do about it. So that's just from a Buddhist point of view, 100% wrong. This is not the case. You're not just like that. This is not just your character. But it is true that, of course, you have a certain mix of character traits in this very life. But by dying out of this life and going into another life, other so-called karmas will decide, or kind of will bring about a new mix of character traits. So your character is actually not something that is kind of your core or something that gives you the identity who you are or something like this. In the end, Buddhism might say things like that actually there's very little to say about who you are. You're simply alive. You're simply clear knowing. You're simply experiencing. That's what's going on. And actually thinking that you are this and that is actually exactly one of these problems that generate all the other problems we have in our life. We are clinging for a self and so forth. So I think this is an interesting topic, this idea of I'm just like that and there's nothing much to be done about it. So you will find out if you check your mind that there is certain things, certain negativities that when they are pointed out to you, you can change on the spot. You can be told, look, this is a faulty behavior, this is harming others, please stop that. And you might be able to stop it on the spot. Then with other things, you would maybe deny that this is a negative behavior, and it will take you some time to understand this and to go through this, to reflect on it. Somebody says this is a negative behavior, say, no, it's not, and so forth, and then you go back and forth, discuss it, and finally get an understanding, and then you can stop it later on. And then there will be other things which are very difficult to stop. Yeah, there's things, habits in your mind which you might understand as being negative, but simply they're so deeply ingrained that it is very difficult to stop. It might take you years of practice, and you might not even succeed at all in this life. So then you might feel like, oh, here we have something. This is my character. This is not changing. This is permanent. This is not impermanent. I can't do anything about this. But that's also not the case. It might just take much more time to change things. But they are changeable, all of them. All of the different stains or character traits in our mind can be changed completely. Everything. Some of the things will be changed by death anyway. So we will just kind of no longer be of this kind of character if we have been able to change it in this life or not. And in the next life we might have a different character. Other things you might be able to change right away. Let's say somebody is deciding that he wants to be vegetarian because he doesn't want to kill animals and so forth. So you might actually have quite a liking for meat or for meat dishes, but still you might be able to stop eating meat on the spot, although you have a strong liking for it. So that's something that you can change very, very quickly. Then other things, let's say smoking or something, it might take you some strong activity or some strong reflection and so forth in order to stop this kind of behavior, or maybe somebody has an alcohol problem or something like that. But all of this is possible. And then there's other character traits which might take much longer. And so the thing is the stickier, the more difficult the character trait is that you try to change, the stronger is the method that you need to apply. And as I just said, with some things, by just understanding that they're wrong, you can stop them right there. Other things you might understand that they're are not good for your health or not good for your relationships and so on, and it will take you time to change it anyway because of the habit. But for stronger problems in the mind, you need to have a yet stronger method, and that method is going to be the topic of the next module. In Buddhism, we call that meditation. And meditation is a tool where you are actually understanding a certain situation. You understand that a certain behavior or way of thinking and so forth is actually not good for you, is negative, is harming you, but you can't stop it, even by thinking about it again and again. So you're bringing your mind in meditation into a specifically precise state, calm state, concentrated state, and then do the analysis in this kind of state. And this is something you do kind of repeatedly for a long time, and then even these kind of more difficult problems in your mind can start to change. If you go deeper into Buddhism, the Buddha will explain more and more layers of problems that we have. He will explain a lot of layers of problems that we are not aware of whatsoever. So this is layers which are very, very deeply ingrained, and they will even take lifetimes, and maybe even many, many, many lifetimes to get rid of. So this is then the actual kind of deep digging spiritual practice that the yogis do in the caves in the Himalayas and so forth. Yeah? So they are not concerned with stopping smoking or stopping drinking or something. So they're definitely beyond that level. And they might also be beyond the level of being jealous or being angry in a coarse way and so forth. They are really dealing with very, very deep levels of so-called afflictions in order to actually liberate the mind from all limitations. And for example, like what is grasping that they have an identity or that there's a self and so forth. Yeah? So this is going very, very far. So therefore here we need a new tool, a new way of treatment. You could say a different kind of therapy. I guess that also in psychology, these different forms of therapy are already something that is going further than our normal ways of dealing with our problems. Again, I said some of them you just understand they're wrong, you can stop them by this understanding. Other things you might take you some time to think over it. And then in therapy, you might have yet stronger ways of dealing with things. And then meditation goes even beyond that. And then you have, meditation itself, of course, has many different levels. I'm not going to go into that because this is the next module, actually, the very next topic. So just to say that when we talk about the mind and its potential, we have this limitless, incredible potential to become a Buddha. We have been living lives beyond number since beginningless lifetimes. We were talking about this last time, that there's no beginning. And this potential never has manifested. So we will have to do quite some work, which is expressed by the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, by the true paths, in order to bring about an actualization of this potential, to bring about that we actually can become Buddhas. And so the way to do this is by way of using this path, by doing the actual spiritual practice. And so this here being the first module of the what's called the Discovering Buddhism, isn't it? The whole course is called Discovering Buddhism, I think. So this being just the first module, right now I guess the idea is to just talk about what's possible in the mind, and then what limitations there are and how they can be dissolved by way of meditation and spiritual practices is an actual topic of the other modules. Maybe I just would like to kind of, because this is the last session on this topic, mind and its potential, just to summarize a little bit like all the different topics that we have been going through. I think especially last time we were talking about things like that the mind is without beginning, that we are without beginning, and so forth. I got from Marius that you didn't have so much time to discuss last time because you were more talking about how to have discussion groups. Is that right? There was not so much time to discuss things. So this would actually be quite a important topic to discuss. This being without beginning. So I will just touch on this again. I'm actually quite appreciative that you are taking so much time to find out the best way how you go to a discussion group. Because being in a group, different individuals being in a group trying to discuss things which might be close to their heart, and making yourself vulnerable, and also thinking about others, their situation, is a wonderful spiritual practice. It's great. It's already going to bring out some of the dark sides in our mind. It's going to give us already an opportunity to find ways to deal with it and to change. Wonderful. So how I was starting this is talking about how the mind is the most important factor in our life, nothing else. Yeah, not our family, not our country, not our gender that we're belonging to, not our rights according to the Constitution or according to the human rights. I mean, it's not about science, it's not about the countryside, it's not about politics or economics. It's not about that. It's about the mind. It's about the mind. If we change something in politics, it's in order for more people to be happy in their mind. If we change something in science, it should be there in order for more people to be happy in their mind. That's what it's about. I don't know how they're going to do this, but if it's a goal to reach Mars, then somehow this should bring about happiness in the mind. So makes you maybe doubt if it's so necessary to get to Mars, actually. But anyway, this is the major point that in Buddhism it's all about the mind, and it is all about the mind because in our lives it's all about the mind. And it is all about the mind in our lives because it's all about that we want to become happy, we want to be happy, we want to experience happiness, we don't want to experience suffering. Yeah, so this is what is actually going on with us all the time. We try to solve problems, we try to have good relationships, or deal with with people kind of being nasty to us or being friendly with us and so forth. So all the different situations all day long. So we try to get most satisfactory experiences out of our day. In other words, try to be happy. We try to deal with all our problems. We try to get rid of any kind of miscommunication, sadness, boredom, stress, and so forth. So we're constantly trying to get rid of what I call suffering here or dissatisfaction, and on the other hand, experience happiness and so forth. So that very experience of happiness being an experience and not an outer situation or an arrangement of objects or something like this, that very experience of happiness and suffering is in the mind. It's the mind that is the experiencer. That's where the experience is. So as we're looking for happiness and try to be without problems and without suffering, it is actually all about the mind. Trying to be happy means trying to get a certain state of mind. Trying to be free of problems means trying to be free of a certain negative state of mind. So the mind is kind of actually what we should constantly be concerned about, what's going on in our mind, and not so much what's going on with the outer conditions. And so that being the case, that we are all our life, I said, the meaning of our life is actually coming from our looking for happiness and trying to not have to experience any kind of suffering or problems. Yeah? So from that, the mind becomes central. When the mind becomes central, it becomes central. What is the mind? What's the potential of the mind? And then we heard that the mind itself has this definition of being just clear and knowing. And this included that it is nothing material. It included that it is not the brain. It is not the eyes. It's not the body. It's not the hormones. Our happiness is not the hormones. Our perception is not the eyes. It's not the ears. It's not the brain and so forth. We heard that. Then from that followed that as the mind is not the body, when the body dies, the destiny or the evolution of the mind is very different from the body. So the body might disintegrate, the mind does not. And we also followed through this evolution, how there was a previous moment of mind, and the mind being impermanent and being produced by a previous moment of mind, there be a previous moment to that. So we could understand, for example, that whatever age we are now, when we were children, we already had mind, we already had experience. So that very experience from childhood to the present day was just going through. So there's this continuity of mind. But then even this mind of a child has previous moments like the mind of a baby. And then even this mind of a baby actually already had moments of the mind of the fetus, of the unborn baby. And so in this way we could understand that every previous period, or actually every previous moment, has yet a previous moment, and yet a previous moment. And so we got to the first moment of conception, how there was a fetus which was just this fertilized egg. And that fetus already, some unexpressible experience was already there with this fetus. And then the question was, what about the moment before? As the mind is not material and is not a fertilized egg, then it has to have a mind before that. And where would this come from? Yeah? So where was this moment before the first moment of conception? What was this then? It didn't have a physical basis, or at least not the physical basis of that very body. It did not have a physical basis that came from our parents. So there is this moment before the first moment of this life, and even that moment had a moment before that. And even that moment had a moment before that. So there's a whole continuity of mind, a whole stream of mind coming into this present life. But it has kind of huge stretches of time before it. Actually, if you think it through, you will always find a previous moment. And if you go back like eons and eons of mind, then even that would have a previous moment. And so in the end, you will understand that there is actually no first moment, because whatever you would posit as the first moment of mind would have yet a previous moment. So that means that the mind is actually unlimited in time. It is eternal. It has no first moment. And so as to some extent, we are our mind, or we're not really our mind, but we have a mind. So where there's our mind, there's also us. So we can actually say, we are without beginning. The mind is without beginning, we are without beginning. And the same thing is happening into the future. So at one point there will be death and the mind will separate from this body. There will no longer be this very close interaction between our mind and this physical setup here, this body, these eyes, this brain, and so forth. And then again, what is this mind? What kind of state of mind is that without this body? And so it goes further on into the future. So actually we are even endless. This mind is without beginning and is without end. And that has a lot of consequences. As I said, first of all, it brings about this idea of reincarnation, which in itself brings about the idea that we are not necessarily human. We could be an animal or many other things as well. It also brings about that even when we are human, we don't have to be a man or a woman. We don't have to be a European or a black person or an Asian or any of that. Anything goes, really. We don't have to be a nice person or a spiritual person. We can be a fascist. We can be a terrorist. We can be a psychopath. So that's pretty scary, actually, if you think about that. So all the more it makes it urgent to actually understand more about the mind and to work with the mind, to train the mind, to make sure that this mind does not become a psychopath, does not go to the animal realm, and so forth. And so all of this is showing actually potentials of the mind. The mind has the potential to become an animal mind. It has the potential to become a spiritual mind. It has the potential to become a psychopath mind, and so forth. So that tells us already something about the mind. That the mind is can transform a lot. So this is so because it is simply clear and knowing. If it would be anything else than that, then it would have to always reincarnate as a woman or as a European or as somebody who's spiritually inclined and so forth. And animals would always stay animals and so forth. So this is not the case. The mind is not defined as a human mind or as a male mind or as a European mind or whatever, or intelligent or spiritual or something. It's not like that. It's simply clear and knowing. That's all what it is. And so that can, to some extent, then also lead to the discussion of Buddha nature, that as nothing is so defined about us, and actually whatever we think about ourselves might be lost, or whatever we think that we are might be lost at the time of death, and something completely different might come about. So then there is vast openness for anything to happen, really, including Buddhahood. So then this is then coming back to this teaching on Buddha nature, how actually a mind that is simply that, clear and knowing, and is not by itself angry or desirous or stupid or whatever, or limited in any way, or connected to a body and so forth, or distracted, for example, that such a mind that doesn't have this in its nature can be transformed completely, has incredible spiritual potential, can actually reach not only lasting happiness in nirvana, but can actually reach complete enlightenment as a Buddha. So again, we can reach complete enlightenment in Buddha, limitless good qualities without any kind of negativities in our mind, because the negativities like anger and attachment and dullness and whatever are not in the nature of our mind. They can be removed. We also used this example last time, that you could have a body of water, let's say a little lake or pool or something in that, and it is muddy on the bottom. And so if you take a stick and you stir in this pool, then the whole water becomes muddy, and it becomes unclear, and it's not fit to be drunk and so forth. And so then, if you don't stir it up, and you just leave it there, all the mud particles are sinking to the ground. And the water becomes clear, and it becomes calm, and you can look right through it, and it even becomes possible to drink it. So this is because the mud particles are not in the nature of the water. They're just mixed in. but they can actually be removed, they can settle down, they can be taken out and so forth. So that's the analogy that we often use with regard to the mind, and that the mind can be purified. So all these things like anger and attachment and selfishness and what have you, and fear and desperation and loneliness and so forth, all of this can be removed out of the mind because it's not in the nature of the mind to be like that. Also to be excited or to be distracted or have a low attention span and stuff like this. Yeah, all of this can be changed. The mind can be pacified, and you could say it can be healed. And if it is healed, it goes back to its natural, sane, healthy state, which is omniscience, which is the state of a Buddha. So that's kind of in a nutshell what mind is and what its potential is. And I think we're going to leave it at that. And from that point of view, we're going to leave it at that for this module because it's the last session. So normally we end with an opportunity for question and answer. So if you would have any questions, then this would be a good moment to ask them. Remember our motivation in the beginning when we said we're going to listen attentively and we're going to engage, engage with questions and so forth.
So it's my understanding that a lot of people have become enlightened.
Yeah.
And was among them, were there any recorded cases where after reaching enlightenment, they changed their goals? Like, for example, the monks we said from other countries, from the other branch of Buddhism, have they switched to trying to become a Buddha and help all the other people? Or
If they reach nirvana, is there the case to try and reach Buddhahood afterwards?
Okay, cool. So the question is something like, yeah, so the question seems to be like, what about if somebody is reaching nirvana? Can somebody like this then change later on to go further than nirvana and become a Buddha, go for Buddhahood? Is that it?
if it wasn't his initial goal.
Yeah, so somebody who has, let's say, a Theravada mind or a Hinayana mind and is just aiming for his own salvation and then gains nirvana, can he later on, when he has gained that, change to a higher goal to become a Buddha, for example? Is that the question?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, so in a nutshell, I could say, he can change to the higher goal. Actually, he will change. In the end, there is a certain topic in Buddhism, or in Mahayana Buddhism, if everybody will become enlightened, and there's different answers to that, but whoever will practice will be able to get enlightened. Yeah, so that's pretty clear. They also say that if somebody gains nirvana, such a person is then still under the care of the Buddha, just as we are under the care of the Buddha. I said when there's any kind of opening in our self-centeredness and so forth, then the Buddha will immediately do something to help us. It will manifest in our lives in many different forms and so on. So the same is also true for somebody who has gained nirvana. The Buddha is very aware that this person has not reached his full potential, and will still observe this person in nirvana with love and compassion and be constantly waiting for an opportunity to do something. And so they say that the Buddhas have capacities to actually wake up somebody out of the state of nirvana and make him continue the path. And so that's pretty established actually. We have many presentations how a bodhisattva is somebody who is aiming for Buddhahood. Yes, so somebody who does a Mahayana practice, how he proceeds. But we also have many teachings about how somebody who does first the Hinayana path, how he later on proceeds into the Mahayana. Yeah. So he would first practice the Hinayana path and gain the realization of that, come to the end of that path. And then he would have a kind of a path which is neither Hinayana nor Mahayana. Yeah, because he is no longer Hinayana, he goes towards the Mahayana, but he's not in the Mahayana yet. So then he would kind of practice here to get into the Mahayana, and then there's a certain description how he would proceed in the Mahayana, which is different from the Bodhisattva and so forth. So there's this different presentation. So anyway, in short, this is indeed the case. Somebody who has gained nirvana will proceed sooner or later, depending on the individual, to Buddhahood. And I say this is dependent on the individual because the path is normally presented very rigid. Yeah, it sounds like everybody has to do exactly the same thing, but in the end, it's always individuals who walk the path. So there is, for example, some who say, "I first want to get out of samsara, and once I'm out of samsara, then I want to go to the Mahayana." So they have kind of a Mahayana attitude. And others say, "I don't want to go to the Mahayana whatsoever. I just want to go to Nirvana. I'm going to stay there." And so these people then again Nirvana, and they stay in a certain type of bliss for a long time. And then the Buddhas, with their capacities, get them out of this bliss to keep on working. So the first one is gaining, that the first one who says, "I will first get out of samsara and then continue with the Mahayana," he gains nirvana, gets out of samsara, gains nirvana, and immediately continues towards the Mahayana, because that was his goal. The other one is aiming for nirvana, wants to stay there, gains nirvana, and stays in that state for some time. And so forth. So there's this different ways of proceeding. But in general, it is like that all beings will proceed to complete enlightenment. So I say this is my answer from the point of view of the highest school in Tibetan Buddhism. There is actually Buddhist philosophers within Mahayana who say that there is so-called 3 final vehicles. And so maybe this is getting too complicated, but anyway, like in the Hinayana, there's actually 2 types of practitioners. One is called a hearer, and one is called a solitary realizer. And so both of them are counted into the Hinayana. And so there's some philosophies who say if the hearer gains a hearer nirvana, that's it. He will never gain a Buddhahood. He will never manifest his full potential. He will be in this final state of the hearer nirvana. When the Pratyeka Buddha or the solitary realizer gains this final state of the nirvana of the solitary realizer, that's it. He will never be able to go to Buddhahood. He will stay in that state and will never completely actualize his potential. And only the Bodhisattva who goes to Buddhahood actualizes the whole thing. So this is done by the so-called lower schools. But I guess best is to present it from the higher school, from the so-called Prasangika school. And so they would clearly say that the Buddhas will wake up beings in out of their nirvana and make them actualize their full potential. So in the end, everybody will become completely enlightened. Does that make it clear?
Yeah.
Is that an answer?
Sorry, I have a question. My name's Robert. I wonder how welcoming the Buddhist community is to atheists like myself. But can you? There are a lot of. I think there shouldn't be any conflict of interest with that, because if you want to reach nirvana and share those sorts of experiences and understanding, being free from unsatisfactory thoughts and so forth, I think it's a laudable goal for most people, and to try to introduce people to that. But all of the other sort of metaphysical stuff, guys like myself will just tend to ignore, or maybe even sometimes make fun of. What would you do with people such as myself?
Okay. So I didn't understand anything about this. Can you put it into a nutshell? Marius, can you repeat it? I think we maybe good to have next time like a microphone or something that we can hand around or something, if that's possible.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just say it much shorter anyway.
Okay.
For someone that doesn't believe in any of the metaphysics of any kind, but wants to learn and share and make the world a better place and such and such. So if your intentions are good, does it matter if you don't buy into any of the metaphysics?
Does it matter for what?
Well, for people like yourselves or the guys that run the communities, are you pissed that atheists want to join in, or? Is it a welcoming bunch, or should atheists be somehow excommunicated?
You know, you can only excommunicate somebody who's in the community, first
Yes,
of all.
well, once they found out.
Yeah, maybe you can formulate the question like this: what about good people? What kind of results do they get anyway? People who kind of are doing good to others, people who are working with their minds, let's say psychologists or other people. Yeah. So what about them? What kind of results do they get? Can we say like that?
No. Just to go on a journey in the community. So for me to be in this place, for example, where and like yourself, you're talking about much of the metaphysics and so forth. If you don't buy into that sort of stuff, how welcoming is the community? Do you have to go hook, line, and sinker into Buddhism and being the Buddha, or can you take what you like from it?
Okay. So again, I didn't hear everything, but was it something like can you join the community and just listen to teachings and then take what you like? Is that something? No. Okay, sorry.
Especially if you don't believe in any. You're an atheist. You know what an atheist is?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So no metaphysical stuff, no magic, no mysticism, no, one mind, no. I like oneness. I know a bit about oneness. That seems cool. But there is none of this reincarnation and stuff like that. Is it going to be a healthy community to be in, or will you get pushback and stuff like this?
Yeah, the thing is that, of course, I mean, first of all, to some extent, Buddhism is atheist, so atheists are welcome. On the other hand, of course, Buddhism has also a system, like a complete system within which statements are done. So I think I don't know. I guess it's similar in Christianity and so forth, or Islam. So people could come and take whatever is useful for them, but in the end, to do the full thing, at one point one would have to take on certain concepts. So if you call these concepts metaphysical, then let's say that. Then at one point you have to take on metaphysical things. For example, I said before, in order to become enlightened, you will have to practice for many, many lifetimes, because the transformation in your mind that are necessary are so severe, are so ground shaking, that you will not be able to do this within one life. So if the concept of many lives is already metaphysical, or is not something that can be embraced, then this whole idea of becoming enlightened is, I would say not possible. Like then an atheist of that type, as you describe him, could, or as you describe yourself, maybe, I'm not sure, then could take on many things from Buddhism and use them in his own life. But Buddhahood would not become a goal for that person, because it is so far away. Does it make sense?
Yes, of course, absolutely. But from what I've seen in the community and others that I've listened to, you can gain a lot in one lifetime. And for me that sounds okay.
Yeah, I mean, sure. For example, let's say people nowadays are suffering from low attention spans. Yeah, so by using concentration meditation, they can change that in this very life. And also by a lot of teachings on love and compassion, and thinking about how oneself and others are essentially the same, you can definitely incredibly improve your relationships, work relationships, family relationships, and so forth. Yeah, by getting to know yourself and your movements of afflictions or emotions, then you can understand more what's going on with the other person. By understanding more your own suffering, you can understand the suffering of somebody else that is screaming at you in the work situation, let's say. So that can be all very, very helpful in daily and within this life situations. And I would say that people are all welcome to take this home. The thing is that the Buddha in the end came in order to liberate sentient beings from samsara as a minimum. So that already includes that there are many lives and this cycle of even going to animal realms and so forth. So this is what the Buddha actually wants to liberate them from on a basic level. On a higher level, he wants to even get them to enlightenment. So I would say that people can benefit greatly from Buddhism without becoming Buddhists. I would also say they should stay clear of this, that they are actually using Buddhist practices, and are very welcome for that, but they are not Buddhists. For example, there is a certain practice or therapy or or workshop or something like this. There's an American, I think, his name is Tharchin, and he's doing stress reduction by way of awareness practice. And so we had somebody coming to the monastery, and he was using this awareness practice, according to Kabat-Zinn, a lot. And it really changed his life. And there was a guy who had so severe cancer that he had, in a row, 6 chemotherapies in a row. And he survived all of this by way of awareness practice. So really, really helpful for him. And then he came to Nalanda, and he thought he really likes this, and he would like to live his life like this, and he would like to become a monk here. And then he came here, and of course he was welcome to become a monk here, but then he was shocked that he has so much talk about reincarnation. And he said, yeah, it's about reincarnation, it's a Buddhist monastery. So he thought he is a Buddhist because he's following awareness practices. So I'm very, very happy with people taking out of Buddhism or for wherever awareness practice and benefit from that. And I would be more than happy to talk to atheist groups about how they can improve their daily life and so forth. But they should not consider themselves as Buddhists.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So there's this kind of confusion going on, actually going on right now as we speak in the world. Yeah? So apart from this, everybody can take whatever is useful and is welcome for that. Yeah. Is that an answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay. Any other questions?
I'll throw one that's holding the whole thing. A baby's born Buddha.
What was that?
A baby's born with a Buddha.
A baby is born with a Buddha? What does that mean?
Well, Buddha is a state of enlightenment.
Uh-huh.
A baby born enlightened.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I think this is a question coming out of the idea that a baby is kind of pure and should be without any kind of obscuration, so therefore it should have this Buddha mind actually, and so that the obscurations are coming only later. So we talked about this last time. Actually, it was a question coming out of the discussion group last time. So this is not the case. Babies are not pure. Babies are just carrying the karmic setup out of myriads and myriads of lives. And last time already, I was really encouraging people who want to explore their mind when they are coming to a situation where they can see babies or where they can see very young children, to really observe how they interact. And I was telling this example of my own niece, who always loved to be, like normally was maybe lying in a cradle or on a blanket on the floor, really loved to be taken up and then see more in the room. And so people in my family, they're wearing glasses, my mother, for example. And she was always intrigued by this kind of shimmering glasses, yeah? So she wanted to grab them. Yeah? She wanted to take these glasses. No, I'm actually not sure if I told this last time. Anyway, so here's the story. So she wanted to grab this, and then of course my mother tried to stop her from grabbing the glasses, because she would grab it, and if she's not interested, would drop it to the floor. And so, having been stopped to grab the glasses, at one point my mother told me this. The face of the baby was turning kind of, let's say, mean, and it was actually scratching the face of my mother because it didn't get what it wanted. That much for a pure baby. Very young. So actually, I mean, there is a lot of interesting and intriguing and inspiring things about children, young children. But I think there are very basic structures like wanting to have, and if you don't have it, then you are hitting back, or you're punishing or something, or you're inflicting harm on somebody else. It's already there from the very beginning. From the very beginning. So I would not hold that babies are born pure. I would rather hold, like for example, in certain types of psychology, they would tell you that we are all born like a white sheet of paper, and then all of society and family and education is kind of stamping things on this white paper, and in the end you have a certain shape, and this is your character. So that's not the case according to Buddhism. You're already not coming as a white paper. You're already having all kind of stamps on it. Actually the stamp thing is quite cool, because this is how we refer to karma normally, as imprints in the mind. You're carrying imprints. And then the question is which of these imprints get activated in that life. So anyway, we don't come pure. So in short, a baby is not born as a Buddha and then declines from that. I mean, this is already kind of self-explanatory, because when you gain the state of a Buddha, you could not decline into a lower state afterwards. You decline into lower states because you still have negativities in your mind, which are then ripening again into negative states. So a Buddha is free of all of that. So if a child would be born completely pure, would be born as a Buddha, it could not later on degenerate into an angry person, afraid person, and so forth. Right.
One more question?
Yeah, please.
How much is the typical time to reach enlightenment, and how big is the success rate?
What was that? How much is something?
What's the typical time to reach enlightenment, and what's the typical success rate?
Okay. The success rate of those who reach enlightenment is 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Where to start? Yeah. So everything depends very much, like how long it will take. It depends very much on the individual, what kind of baggage one is carrying, how much needs to be purified, how much imprints people already have for certain things, what kind of skills they already bring. Let's say you and me, we are born into this life, yeah. But I'm starting. I'm for the first time hearing Buddhism. Whatever they tell me about Buddhism is very difficult for me to get, and it sounds like counterintuitive, and I don't like it, and it's difficult to deal with it. You, on the other hand, you hear this for the first time, makes immediately sense to you. You start practicing. You learn more things and so forth. Yeah. So that's actually happening. You can see this. You can see people having great problems with Buddhist teachings. Other people find it very easy to follow these teachings. Some people do certain concentration meditations, and it's very easy for them. For other people, it's very difficult. Other people do analytical meditation, and that's good for them. For other people, they don't like it, and so forth. Other people like to do, let's say, recitations and so forth. So you can see how people, on the one hand, have very different skills in entering into Buddhism, and when they have entered into Buddhism, they have very different skills with regard to the different practices. And there's a whole plethora, a whole magnitude of different of different practices. So there, you can see how people have a liking for this kind of practice and not so much for others. And yet others go for that. So we all come with our own setup, with our own character, with our own imprints and so forth. And so therefore it's definitely not possible to make a clear statement that it will take for everybody that long. It completely depends on what you're already bringing, and yeah, what kind of practices you're engaging into. But that's generating some discussions, I see. This kind of statement. Does that make sense or something? What I'm saying?
Makes sense, but I was asking more of statistics. What's the longest time and the shortest time that it took somebody to reach enlightenment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's yeah, again, yeah, you might have a very, somebody being born and, immediately going into Buddhism, being extremely skilled, and he becomes enlightened within 3 years. This is by way of somebody being highly qualified for highest yoga tantra practice, and by doing this becomes enlightened within 3 years. Yeah, obviously this person would grow up and then at one point maybe find a teacher, and then the teacher would teach this person, and then at one point within 3 years it would become enlightened. Yeah. So, but this is so incredibly the exception. Yeah. This is not our case whatsoever. I almost regret that I said this even. Yeah. So normally for most of us, I mean definitely for myself, for example, it will be much more about, instead of attaining enlightenment or liberation, it will be much more about being a more open person at the end of our life, far from enlightenment or nirvana, or like becoming a more loving person, or being more concentrated, or having a clearer understanding about mind, about the path, and so forth. Yeah? So you know. And of course, we're talking here all the time about nirvana and enlightenment, because the topic is what is the potential of the mind, what's the highest potential of the mind. But for most of all, for most of us, it's more like understanding what is the potential, and then kind of generating a desire for that. I would like to become like that after many lifetimes. And within this lifetime, yeah, I might be more knowledgeable about the path. I might be more able to have better relationships. I might be able. I mean, it depends. People might actually go for meditation and actually change their mind, become very concentrated. I know monks here who actually go for concentration meditation, gain realizations, and so forth. So this is happening. But for many people, it will be simply kind of a first step into spirituality. I mean, if we look at our present day civilization, I think we're not very much encouraged to be spiritual. So it's already a big step to start with spirituality whatsoever. So that could be already a success of this life, to make a step out of this consumerist, short-lived society into some kind of spiritual practice. Yeah. So yeah. So again, it's very much about where you are, what kind of capacities you already bring. So this determines what kind of results you can have within this life. And apart from this, just to I say, give you a framework. When I talk about Mahayana and Hinayana, this is talking about a spiritual practitioner having gained a certain level of realization, and on that realization, one would say, so now he's a Hinayana practitioner. And by gaining another level of realization, he would then be a Mahayana practitioner. Before that, you were practicing, or you were training yourself towards these kind of Mahayana or Hinayana. So, for example, somebody who becomes a Hinayana practitioner has gained a realization with regard to the complete futility of this world, of this society, has completely understood that he could die any moment, and the only thing that really makes any sense is spiritual practice, and therefore he does not do anything else apart from spiritual practice. When he's on this level, and he has completely understood that nirvana is possible, and he is really going for nirvana, and he's really aiming for this, and he does nothing else than practicing for that, and he gains this kind of realization, what is called a mind of renunciation, then he's finally entering the Hinayana. Before that, he's preparing himself for the Hinayana in one way or another. Another person who has so completely transformed his mind that he really cannot live otherwise than helping all sentient beings. Yeah? So he has already agreed that there is myriads of sentient beings. He has completely understood that that there is no difference between a mind of a human and of animals and so forth, and that he really wants to help all sentient beings, all mosquitoes, all insects. He's really, really concerned. He's overflowing with compassion and so forth. And he has understood that he cannot help them apart from becomes a Buddha. So he has understood what a Buddha is. And he accepts that something like this exists and that he has the potential. So he wants to become a Buddha. He generates what is called bodhicitta. When he has generated this realization, then he is finally entering the Mahayana. So before that is a preparation for the Mahayana. So me personally, for example, I'm neither in the Hinayana nor in the Mahayana. I'm preparing myself for the Mahayana. So only if you're in the Mahayana, then you can gain the realization of Buddhahood. So this is described like this. If a bodhisattva enters into the Mahayana, when he has actually entered, when he's now in the Mahayana, he's no longer preparing himself, then it's going to take 3 countless eons for him to become a Buddha. Myriads and myriads of lifetimes. It's really cosmic transformation of our mind. So this is the potential of our mind, but the transformation that is necessary to reach this is amazing. So we're going to take a long time. So the shortest time is for somebody who's at the very end of this path, gets born, and within 3 years he's going to become enlightened. But for us, we are just approaching in one way or another. So it's, I don't know if other religions have this kind of scope in their spiritual practice, that this vastness in their approach and so forth. But Buddhism is really definitely talking about practice over eons, over life. Like, it might be that we are practicing longer than the universe exists, and there comes a new universe, and we're still practicing and so forth. So it's huge. That's what I'm saying. We have to have, on the one hand, the big goal, yeah, Buddhahood or liberation, and on the other hand, we have to aim for much closer by realizations, like having better relationships with others, yeah, being less desirous with regard to objects of attachment and so forth, yeah. So that's these 2 levels that we need to work on. That's the short answer.
Okay. So then, is there a way to send your future mind a message so that you jumpstart your next life?
Was it a message to my future mind? What about that?
Yeah. To the mind in your future life.
Yeah.
Can you send the message, so to speak, to jumpstart your future life to go towards this path faster?
Now the thing is this, of course, if you the stronger your practice is within this life, the stronger it leaves imprints in your mind. And these imprints, if they are the strongest, will then also, like I was presenting before a little bit, like in order before I was saying that when we die out of this life, then whatever we have here is dissolving, and the next life is open to anything goes. Yeah, that's what I said. In order to show that there's nothing in the mind that by its nature makes it human or animal or man or woman or whatever. But of course, things are more refined than that, and there is a description what kind of karmas are gonna ripen in the next life. What is gonna shape your next life? That is not just random. Any kind of thing is happening, but it's the strongest ones who are gonna ripen first. So if you have kind of a little interest in spirituality, and you look at this sometimes, so this is gonna leave a positive imprint, but it's gonna be weak. So the question is, will that kind of weak imprint ripen in the next life? If not, then you will not be a spiritual person. But if you completely dedicate yourself, and I'm not saying you have to become a monk for that, but if you dedicate yourself also as a lay person to spiritual matters, let's say in practice of generosity or practicing of ethics, really kind of abstaining from certain negative habits, finding them in your mind and then stopping that, practicing this kind of thing. Or you go into studies or something that's about mind and so on. So this kind of things can be very strong. And if they are very strong, then they will have the strength to ripen in the next life again. So you will again be inclined to study about spiritual phenomena. If you had a strong study in print, you will again go for generosity if you had a strong practice of generosity, ethics, and so forth. So there's a difference there. So therefore, if you want to send a message to your next life to jumpstart the process, you have to practice hard in this life. That's clearly the core message of Buddhism anyway.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
All right.
All right.
So the thing is that's kind of what goes our last session on mindfulness potential. But in the end, you might already have felt that it was touching. We were touching in these 3 sessions on pretty much everything that Buddhism has to offer anyway, because the whole Buddhist path is about the mind and its potential, and it is just the first module. So it's just kind of starting off the whole process. In the end, we're gonna talk about all the topics that we have been talking here again and again. They will come up again and again in different modules. Because in Buddhism, actually, while you have kind of clearly defined chapters, in the end they're all interconnected. So you come back to topics again and again. So while we are finishing this topic now, doesn't mean that we finish this topic. That's what I want to say. So next time we're gonna have, I think, meditation or something like this. That's the next module.
How to meditate.
How to meditate. So I will think a little bit about this. We definitely will have one session about that. I don't know how many sessions we're going to do about this. I will look into the material. Maybe you people could also talk amongst each other how you want to do these things. Maybe you actually want to meditate together. That would be one thing. I will look into the material. There's something to be said about meditation, but in the end, you always in this condition, you always meditate on a topic. Yeah, for example, the potential of the mind, or bodhicitta, or renunciation, or generosity, ethics, and so forth, karma, rebirth. So actually, you need a content for the meditation. So I will look into the material, and then what I want to say is then we will see how many sessions we're going to do about this, I would say. So maybe I can discuss this with Marius, and then we will see how this works. So just one suggestion is maybe you people want actually to meditate together, so that would be one way of doing some sessions. Anyway, apart from that, I think you're not going to have a discussion group next time. Because we start a new topic, so next time in 1 week, we're going to have another session, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then see you in 1 week.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Thank you.